Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I talk with Jeremy Neves about fear, acceptance, focus, desires, parenting, leadership, courage, and love. Jeremy Neves, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's an honor and a privilege to have the chance to talk with you. As we were discussing before, starting to record in the pre-discussion, just learning more about you and learning about your company and watching some of the videos that you provided me just for some background. It was all really fascinating, and I'm really excited to have the chance to discuss with you today about the concepts of fear, acceptance, leadership, courage, and really how we can leverage those aspects from our lives and pull them back in to leading effective workplaces. As we get started today, I want to share Jeremy's bio with the listeners. Jeremy Neves, as a founder, investor, and consultant, spends his time starting and scaling businesses and teaching others to do the same. He's most known for his ability to take an entrepreneur or aspiring entrepreneur to the next level in life and business. He and his team have been able to simplify the success in a business down to three main components: vision, culture, and strategy. By getting really clear on these three components, he can simplify and optimize any business. And one of Jeremy's true geniuses is his ability to see 10 steps ahead when others can only see one or two. As a leader, he founded the Xcite Satellite Corporation, which employs 1,000 plus individuals, and over a 10-year period generated over 70 million in sales. He also works as a role model. When he's not founding work on a new business, he can be found working on his other two passions in life: his family and saving trafficked children. And I must say that aspect of your bio was something that really stuck out to me, and I applaud you for that work. It's one of the biggest tragedies, I think, not only in this country but throughout the world. And so good work. Keep up the good work. And I'm really excited to have the chance to talk with you today.
I'm so excited to be here with you today as well. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction.
As we get started, is there anything else you would like to share with the audience, just by way of introduction or background?
Yeah, I mean, you hit on a couple of those two things there. In business, I'm super passionate about business, always have been since a very young age. Had an entrepreneurial dad, and have just really been passionate about growing and building and progressing and learning and things. And spent 10 years of my career starting and growing a business. It was primarily Xcite Satellite. We were primarily door-to-door. So we had door-to-door teams all over the country selling internet and phone products. It was a great opportunity for me to learn and to grow, but also to help and teach others to do the same. We had a lot of independent contractors that ran their own teams and worked on straight commission. And so, it had a great opportunity to learn and grow as a leader in that opportunity. And then, I'm extremely passionate about my family and then also, recently in the last few years, been involved with this child trafficking and organization, nonprofit based here in Utah. And have had, the fortunate pleasure of going undercover and rescuing children from trafficking. And so I feel like that's something that's getting louder and louder today. People are becoming more and more aware of the fact that it exists. And I'm super passionate about being a part of helping be part of the solution.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, and it's not going to be the focus of the episode today, but I can't help but take a little bit of time to just pick your brain on the going undercover aspect of what you do. I mean, that's crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I imagine you could tell a lot of stories, probably most of them quite horrific.
Yeah.
But can you give us just a little bit of an overview of like what that looks like when you're involved
Yeah.
in going undercover to save girls from sex
Yeah.
trafficking?
Absolutely. So with a quick context, like um, the U.S. is a big part of the problem, if not the greatest. We are the supply and we are the demand in for the world. It's American men who are the largest producers and consumers, men and women who are the largest producers and consumers of child pornography, and which is the gateway and the causation of the problem that exists. And so, as an undercover agent and the way that we go about it, I'm not a law enforcement, and nor do we have jurisdiction in any of the places that we go, but we work with federal government law enforcement, and we come in as the American man with that face that the traffickers know so well, that come looking for to purchase these children for um, sex trafficking. And so we go into these other countries and pretend to be looking to purchase these girls. And we work our way up the chain and find traffickers and find more and more girls, get as many as we can into a house that we've secured for a house party. And we throw a fake party, and working with the federal agents, once money's been transferred and all the girls are in there, 70 federal agents come rushing in and arrest the traffickers and rescue the children. And the role that we play is really just kind of being that face, the story that they've seen over and over and over again, coming in looking to purchase these children. And it's really horrific. It's something that I thought would be my wife and I decided to do it. It's like I think I totally underestimated what it would take to sit across from these evil men and to play this role, and for the girls to never know that we're not the bad guys, but with the bigger picture in mind. It's something that we were able to kind of fight through. And I was part of an operation about 2 years ago. We rescued 48 girls, and ages from 13 to 18 years old, that had been taken from their families and were being trafficked multiple times a day. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, I applaud you and everyone you work with for your courage and for your efforts. Man, I just can't even imagine. So
Yeah.
keep up that good work. And I suppose, again, while that's not going to be the focus of our discussion today, it does feed into
Mm-hmm.
the topics that I want to explore with you today. As we think about aspects of courage, responding to fear, and leading out for the benefit of those around us. Something else, maybe, if you don't mind sharing. I know something that has great influence on you has been your son, and maybe you can share a little bit of that story, and then we can go into what you've learned from that and into an organizational leadership perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I have a young boy. He's 4.5 years old now, and just have one child. And when he was born, I just remember, being a first-time dad. Just like everything kind of changed in a moment. The unconditional love and the excitement of, always dreaming growing up of being a dad and what it would be like, and having a son, and all the things that we would do together, and the relationship just got so excited. And as he grew, we had a really good relationship. He also had a very, very good relationship with his mom, and he loved and adored his mom, and still loves and adores his mom. And over time, he started to express an interest in dolls and in princesses. And his favorite is Elsa. He absolutely loves Elsa. And so for his second birthday, uh, my wife bought him a blonde Barbie doll. He had been going through the store every single time, seeing these dolls and pointing at it and calling it "mommy doll." It reminded him of his mom, who had the blonde hair. And so, first I thought it was cute, and I was like, oh, it's funny. He loves his mom. He wants to be like her. But over time, it started to grow, and his fascination just got deeper and deeper and deeper. And it wasn't just the blonde dolls; it was every doll. And it wasn't just dolls; it was dresses. And it wasn't just dresses; it was dressing up like princesses and putting wigs on and shoes on and wanting to put makeup on. And as this began to happen, as this began to grow, all sorts of fears started to creep in. And at the time, I didn't realize the grip that fear had on me. But I had an experience. I'd picked up my son one day from a friend's house, and there was a rule that he couldn't wear dresses outside of our play with dolls and everything else, but they needed to stay here at the house. And when he'd go to other friends' house, he'd put on dresses and dress ups and everything else, and that was fine. But when I picked him up, I tried to get him to take everything off, and he threw an absolute tantrum, taking off the wig and taking off the dress and giving up the dolls. And I was embarrassed. And as I walked out of that house, I just thought, man, what do these parents think about me as a parent? What do they think about my son? And what is the chances that these kids, other kids are going to make fun of my son because this is different? And that night, I just kind of had it. I had been blaming my wife that she was maybe causing him to like these things, that if I was a stay-at-home dad, that, he would have liked cars and trucks and baseball and football like me. And I'd have the son that I had always dreamed of having. But that night I took everything. After I put him to bed, I picked up his dolls and his dresses, and I put it all into a garbage bag, and I threw it all away. And I just said, we're going to just go cold turkey. This is going to stop. And a couple weeks later, I noticed my son was being very, very aggressive towards me, telling me to go away, telling me no, hitting me and pushing me. And I started to wonder if maybe it had to do with this incident, taking away his stuff. And I flew out of town, and I met with a mentor of mine. And this mentor sat down and just said, and I explained to him what was going on with my son, and that I thought maybe it was tied to the fact of the dolls. And he looked me straight in the eyes, and he just said, Jeremy, what are you afraid of? And I said, what? And he's like, what are you afraid of? I'm like, well, I'm afraid that my son's going to get made fun of. He goes, what else? So I'm afraid that I'm afraid what other people think of me as a parent. And I'm afraid, he just kept drilling me. I said, I'm afraid that my son might want to be a girl. I'm afraid that my son might be gay. All of these fears were there, and I didn't even realize the grip it had on me. And he said, what if all those fears were to come true? And I just said, that would be really, really hard. And he said, yeah, I bet. He goes, would you still love him? I said, absolutely. Like, no question. That was an easy answer. He said, well, don't you think it's important that you show him that? I said, yeah. And he said, what do you want most? Like, what do you want absolutely most? And I just said, I want my son to know that I accept him. I want him to know that I love him. I want him to know that I'm there for him no matter what. There's nothing that's going to change whether or not I'll be there for him. And that night I called my wife and said, things are going to be different. I flew home the next day. I picked up my son. I got in my car at the airport. I drove straight home, picked up my son. I took him to the store, and we picked out the most beautiful Elsa dress you can find. And he hugged and kissed me and was just absolutely amazed. He's like, Dad, like, really, Dad? Like, you're going to let me have this? Like, you could tell it was this huge weight off his shoulders. Like, you're really going to let me do this? And it struck me so hard. Like, I just realized how much fear was driving me, and how I wasn't going to let fear drive me anymore. And so, over time, a few weeks later, I surprised him again. I found online a 6'3", 220-pound person Elsa dress, and I got my own dress and my own wig, and I surprised him with that, and asked him if we could play together, and he was just elated. And then, when Frozen 2 came out, we went to the theaters dressed up together. We went trick-or-treating together. We had a birthday party where we were all dressed up as Elsa. And I just really have it's changed my life, my relationship with my son, and showing him that, hey, I accept you. I love you. And I'm willing to do the hard things I'm willing to face my fears in order to show that, because that's what I want more than the other things that I was afraid of. Really, really powerful experience for me.
Yeah, well, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that with everyone. Yeah, I mean, that's tough stuff, and confronting our biases and our fears, and learning to show unconditional love and acceptance to those around us can be difficult, but it's powerful, and ultimately can drive healthy relationships. And the fear and the allowing the biases to feed into our thinking that's what's going to damage relationships, and it's what's going to hurt our families, organizations, whatever the case may be. Now pivoting a little bit from your sex trafficking work and from the experience with your son, um, those are powerful types of experiences. But I know you've had a lot of success in the workplace. You've had a lot of success starting businesses. What lessons have you been able to take from uh, those experiences, and how have you pulled those into your leadership style and approach in working with employees in organizations?
Yeah. So first and foremost, with both of them, we talk about courage. I feel like um, courage is not the absence of fear. It's taking action when fear is present. It's knowing and recognizing and checking in and being like, okay, yeah, I'm afraid right now, and I'm still going to take action. I'm still going to move forward. Just like in the trafficking, it's like I was terrified the night before the operation, sitting down with evil traffickers face to face with them, knowing that if one slip of the tongue, we're dead, type thing. And but still going because of what I wanted more, taking action. And I think that's where, if I lead into the business world, it's, having a clear vision of where you want to go and what you want most. And and when you have a vision of what that is, even though there might be fear, there may be areas of discomfort, whether it's speaking, confronting a challenge head on, having a conversation with somebody, that maybe is not an easy conversation. Maybe it's correcting behavior. Maybe it's a sales call, whatever it is, that somebody could have some fear around. Um, Checking in with what it is that you want most and your vision and where the company's going and what your desire is, and still taking action, still moving forward and taking that action. I feel like courage is number one. And then number two, lessons that I've learned in that apply to those is the key to leadership. And the key to leadership in my mind is trust. Um, I feel like the old way of leadership was, either getting somebody to like you or getting somebody to respect you. Maybe fear-based leadership of like, you work for me, or you're below me or whatever else. If you want to keep your job, this is how it's going to be. But that's not long-term. That's not lasting, and that's not what's going to get the best results. Um, when I look at the relationship with my son, um, he could like me, he could respect me as his dad. But until he trusts me, I'm not getting the best of him. And we're not going to go as far as we could have gone. And so for me, it's about trust. And I feel like the key for trust in leadership, and in an organization, is by being open, by being vulnerable. Um, I think one of the most powerful things you can do is put yourself in the other person's shoes. Um, you know, Look at the bigger picture and then say, okay, here's where I want to go. Here's where I'm at, but also what might the other person be experiencing? What might they be going through? And how might I meet them where they are, and then lead them where we need to go together. And I feel like trust and courage are those two things that for me have been absolutely paramount in success.
Yeah, I love that. And I agree. I think trust is essential. And so much of what you shared from your past experiences and how they feed into your leadership in terms of love and acceptance, I think those are essential in developing trust and maintaining trust. Now, obviously, in the workplace, we're not talking about romantic love. We're not talking about familial love, but we're talking about genuine interest, genuine care, genuine desire to serve those that you lead. That creates trust. That creates a sense of workplace. Maybe love's the wrong word, but it's essentially love, right? That you can count on each other. You know that you accept each other. You care for each other. That work is a safe place. Nobody's going to hold you in judgment. And really, we're all in it together to try to make this thing be the most successful it can be. Again, there might be a better word for it in the workplace setting than love, but that's essentially love. And so I think that takes vulnerability, that takes a commitment to opening transparency and opening yourself up to other people, and then authentically being with them and showing empathy towards them and serving them.
100%. I agree with you 100%. And yeah, I think love's that cliche word. And we're like, we don't want to use that in different places, but it is, it's love, it's concern, it's empathy, it's compassion. And how in an organization can we get to a place where, people are encouraged to try things and to be able to fail, right? If there's this caring, if there's this concern, like there is, we call it in the different areas of our lives, we call it, in our passion projects, maybe, with undercover stuff, or whether it's at home, at business, what it all is across the board is it's culture, right? It's your identity. It's who you are. And so who you are and who you are in that company shouldn't be different. It should be similar. We should find people who are like us, who share the same identity, the same values, and those values come alive. And so in the organization, if there's an identity and there's a culture of acceptance, of love, of compassion, and if there's better words, then great. But the essence of those words, there's going to be a culture of go and try and fail and learn. Because if you can't have a culture of like, hey, be who you are and do your best and take risks and try things and have courage, and things not working out, doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that you learned what didn't work, and now you get to continue to move forward. And I think that that's a culture that will create, be a culture that is allowed to create, and that will evolve, and that will come together and be much stronger.
Absolutely. Falling forward, failing fast. These are some of the cliche types of terms that we hear a lot in business, but they're true. You have, if you want creativity, if you want innovation, if you want to foster a people-centered orientation in your organization, both towards employees and towards customers, you have to be safe for people to take reasonable risks and learn from those experiences. Some of them will be successful, but 9 out of 10 of them probably won't be. You try, you see what happens, and if it works, you try to scale it. If it doesn't work, you learn from the mistakes and the failure, and then you move on and you try the next thing. And the organizations that fade away, even the big conglomerate, big powerhouse organizations that end up failing and fading into the background, they're those that stop trying to innovate. They're the ones that feel like they have the corner on the market, they have it all figured out, and then they just try to maintain the status quo. And you can ride that out for a while, but only for so long before you just won't be able to survive in today's hyper competitive global marketplace, where people are innovating rapidly and there's new technologies constantly. You just have to create that safe environment. So recognizing that fear is the number one deterrent to people innovating in organizations. That comes back to trust or lack thereof. That comes back to love, acceptance or lack thereof. If someone's worried about being punished, if they're worried about being found out because they're transgendered or LGBTQ plus individual, or whatever, whatever the case may be, whatever the thing they're concerned about being found out about. If that's the scenario that we're talking about in our workplace, people are going to be driven primarily by fear, and they're going to try to protect themselves, because that's human nature. And as a leader, I want everyone around me to know that I genuinely care for them, that I genuinely accept them, that they can be their authentic selves and come and bring their authentic self to the workplace. And that's going to empower them to be their best self in the workplace, and that they have that they're encouraged actually to take risk and to try new things and to be creative. And that's where the power comes from. And I think that's good leadership.
I agree with you 100%. I feel like, I've heard you say a number of times, safe, right? Safe is that word where it's like, man, if we could create safety, and you talk about human nature, right? our basic human instincts, from back to caveman days, is like safety. We know when we're safe, and when we know when we're at risk, and our bodies still react the same way. It goes into this fight or flight mode where it's like, I've got to just survive, go into survival mode. And if it's not safe, you're gonna have people in survival mode all the time, and you're not gonna get their creativity. They're gonna be their body, their mind, everything's gonna be so occupied with surviving instead of thriving. And as a leader, it sounds like you really value that safety. And so, there's this saying that you talk about fear. It's the greatest motivator, I think, that humans have, and that they operate from. There's a saying that people run faster away from a burning building than they will run towards a pot of gold. And it just shows you that people, like, they're more focused on what they don't want to have happen than they are based on what they do want to have happen. And, I do this exercise with people, and I have them put their arms out by their side, and I have them look at their left hand and say, like, that is what you don't want. When you look at what you don't want, you can't see your other hand, and your other hand is actually what you do want. And so when you're focused on what you don't want, you can't even see what it is that you do want. So that's fear. If you're focused on fear, you still can't even see what you want. And if you accomplish it, let's just say that you get away from that burning building, and now you put that left hand down, it's like, well, you still can't see what you want. You just accomplished not having the thing you didn't want to have, which is not like, that is not the best way to be living your life. It's not the highest good. You might protect yourself. You might feel a sense of safety at the end of that, but you still aren't closer to where you want to be. And that's why I think so many people are, living the same life over and over, and they're not getting further or progressing. And that's a great funnel to put yourself through, and just ask, like, what am I focused on? Is it what I want or what I don't want? And as a leader, I feel it's our responsibility to show the way, to every single day show up and be focused on what we want most. If we want people to feel safe, well, then we need to come with a sense of safety, and we need to create safety. And I feel we can do that by going first. Me standing up and telling this story about my son and I, it took a while to get there. Like, they were fears and they were insecurities, and I felt like maybe I was alone, and that people would, there's definitely some opposing thoughts and feelings to that experience, and the way that I handled it. Some people still feel like it's the wrong way to go about it. But by going there and sharing that, I open up and I give permission, which I feel so often all of us are craving, is permission. We just want someone to give us permission to be ourselves, or to say the thing or do the thing or whatever. And so as a leader, if I can show up and go there, it gives everyone else permission to do the same and to follow suit. And I think that's absolutely paramount if we want to further, create that safe place for people to be authentic and be able to progress together.
Absolutely. Well said. We're about out of time, but before we part ways, I want to give you a chance to share with the listeners how they can get in touch with you, find out more about you. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website's jeremyneves.com. Neves is spelled 7 backwards. It's a great way for people to remember it. Neves 7. I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Again, it's just Jeremy Neves, Jeremy, and then Neves, Neves, which is 7 backwards. On Instagram, it's with an underscore after my name. But yeah, if you Google my name, you'll find me as well. I've been pretty active online, and so Jeremy Neves, you'll find me online as well. So yeah, I'd love to connect with anybody, and just feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jeremy. It's been a real pleasure talking with you today. I really appreciate your insights and your vulnerability and your willingness to share. I encourage my listeners to reach out to Jeremy and get to know more about what he does. And thanks, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and stay healthy and safe.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe, and that you have a great week.